All right, it's a new day. Getting some more videos out here, continuing my journey here. We've got a lot to cover here. Um, so yeah, let's just get right into this so we can get through as much of this as possible and stuff and keep learning this stuff. At least learning from me. You just kind of following my journey, I guess. Maybe learning yourself. I don't know. Let's pick up where we left off last time, which I believe is passing structures to a function. We've been dealing with functions and all kinds of different stuff we can do with them. And we've not even got halfway through what we could do with functions so far. Not to mention the details about it and everything, which is in another source that I'm going to eventually get to. But I believe we left off with this. If you just first, if this is the first video you've seen of me, this is my journey in trying to learn C++. On the right side of the screen, we have W3 School's website right here, which has helped me to learn it. It's more of discovering it through this website. There's another source that I use that kind of helps me get the details down of all this stuff. And this is not my first time going through this or the other source, but I'm going through it a second time to hopefully sink in into my mind or memory a few of these key points, items from C++ better. I mean, I've learned all this stuff once already and stuff, but it doesn't mean it stuck the first time when I went through and read through it all and did it all. So doing it a second time and stuff may help it to sink in a little bit better. But on the left side of the screen, we got VS Code, which is a text editor. If you're not familiar with text editors, it's how you um, can basically put together and write code. There's a number of text editors out there. In fact, there's most computers include some sort of text editor, but they're not as sophisticated as some of the free ones you can download. You can also, I think, pay for some stuff to support the build, the build of it, the website as well and stuff. This website is a school, so yes, you can upgrade, support the website, whatnot, to make the material in it maybe, hopefully in the future better, but keep it up to date with new and current content stuff. C++, by the way, if you didn't know, is something that gets updated every 3 years. Um, as far as I know. Uh, Originally, I think it started dying out before 2011. 2011, they did an update on it to make it better. And then they didn't do that again until 2017, if I'm not mistaken. And once they did it in 2017, they realized, you know what, this is something we need to do every 3 years and stuff because C++ is getting to be a very strong and popular language. It's been out for a very long time. In fact, it originally originated from C. And prior to that, I think it was called B. Basically, what it is, it's a set of instructions you can use to get a program started and running. A set of instructions that are passed into your computer or whatever device you're using um, to get a program running. In this case and stuff, this right here, C++, uh, even though it is a set of instructions, the computer doesn't understand what I'm putting in here, so you also have to have a compiler. A compiler translate what I put onto the screen here using the keyboard and mouse clicks to translate everything I'm putting in here into machine code or language, which is basically just a bunch of ones and zeros. And it understands pretty much all of it. It does make mistakes just like anything else does, but um, for the most part and stuff, it works pretty good. We use it for a lot of things. So let's get started in this. So we were on to C++ pass structures to a function. In its function section so far, we have covered what a function is, parameters and arguments of a function, default parameters, which I kind of got stuck on that a little bit, and then we started using multiple parameters in a function, so we kind of skipped ahead. So then we discovered that later on, and then we discovered return, um, return values, which indicate that there are different types of functions. For example, the main right here, that is a function. And normally that is always a standard. I don't know if there's anything else other than integer main for the main function. But when it comes to other functions, you can have any kind of type you want right here, depending on what you need the code to do, or the program to do. Set up a variable name just like you would with declaring any kind of type. So we've covered a lot already. Passing stuff by reference, passing arrays into a function, which is what this one was, this code was. So let's get started with this. Pass structures to a function. You can also pass structures to a function. This is useful when you want to work with grouped data inside a function. And I got an example here, and we're going to go ahead and clear the code out we have here and rewrite what we got in this example and see what happens here. Try to decipher the code, see what's going on before we actually output the code to the terminal. So let's go ahead and clean this mess up a little bit here. Go ahead and completely erase this. If you're not familiar with some of the stuff that's on the screen for the code right here, I've got other videos prior to this one that explains a lot more of this stuff. Maybe not all of it yet, but eventually, yes, it'll all get explained. Again, I'm not teaching this stuff. I'm just kind of sharing my journey of learning it. So let's get started. So in this example we got, and I write these examples for exercise for me so I can get used to seeing this stuff, writing it, seeing how it works. I could just simply look at the example and stuff and try to decipher it that way, but I don't think you can see it as well as what I can see it because of the resolution. I believe is only 720p, not 1040 or higher. So I write it also as an exercise and to help it solidify itself into my mind as far as memory is concerned. So I'm kind of have a better understanding of what this stuff is doing. So in this case, we are building a structure. I think we've covered structures before. Yes, I see the thing up here where we covered structures before. So we're going to kind of mix a structure and a function together. Looks like, or as it says in the top, pass structure to a function. Struct, and then we're going to give it a name, which is going to be car. And curly brackets here, string, standard string, brand of the car, it looks like, and then the year of the car. And something to recall or something to remember and stuff. And you may have forgotten this already. I know I forget these things quite often. That's why I do these exercises. Structures have to have a semicolon at the end of them to declare the end of the structure. Functions do not. Okay, so now let's create our function, which is a void function. I'm going to call it my function. Set a parameter up with car C, and then output standard output. Oops, there's supposed to be two of them in there. There we go. Brand. And you're going to see very soon here why I keep going through and exercising all this over and over again to try to solidify this into my mind. It's not just, let's go ahead and move that down to another line so it doesn't run off the page here. It's not just to exercise doing this. As soon as I get done typing this, I'll be able to say it a little bit better. Move down to the main here, and then we got some more code for this. So declaring car, the type is car. My car as the variable name is, string Toyota, and then 2020. That's the end of that. Declare that one, and then I'm going to call the function, my function here with its name, and set in an argument for it, my car. And that's pretty much it. Okay, so again, this is why I do keep doing this over and over. As many people know, there's a difference between short-term and long-term memory. You may see something for the first time, and when you see it, you remember it, but 5 minutes later, happens all the time when you go into stores or gas stations or whatnot. 5, 10 minutes later and stuff, you may completely forget all about that situation. You walk into a gas station, you go to buy yourself something to drink because that's what you went in there for, maybe a snack, maybe you even got gas or whatever. You go up to the cash register. There may be a greeting right there. Hello, how are you doing? Sort of thing. You get your stuff paid for and everything. Have a good day. You've seen the person there. You get out to the car, and literally 5 or 10 minutes later, you might completely forget what that person at the cash register looked like, what was said in that conversation, because that is either one, not currently on your mind, or two, your short-term memory just does not work that well to solidify it into your long-term memory. Um, for some people it does, for some people it doesn't. If you have a lot of things on your mind, then it comes and goes really quick. Well, learning these things too, when I get done making these videos, when I'm done learning trying to learn this stuff, I go on to do dishes, clean the house up a little bit, laundry, shower, whatever I'm gonna do after I make these videos, after I'm done looking at all this stuff. It's all in short-term memory. So if I go do something else, I may forget everything that I've just done, which means it's not getting solidified into memory, which means when I go to write an actual program, I may not remember how to do some things. For example, structures. Yes, I did forget that a semicolon is needed at the end of a structure. I even kind of forgotten already, even though we covered it just a couple of days ago, what a structure looks like. So writing it down, seeing it again is helping to put it back into short-term memory, and hopefully this time around it'll solidify itself a little bit more into long-term memory. So when I go to write something like this, I know exactly how to do it. I do know that this is the body slash definition of the structure. I do know that the structure is basically creating your own class, or not class, your own type. So the type is structure, and we're going to give it the name car, which means we're declaring a new type. Um, in the structure, we got in the body of the structure, we got two definitions or two members, or I can't even remember what that's called right now. But we got a standard string brand, so we're just declaring a brand as a variable name with a type standard string. We got a type integer, we're declaring a name for it right here, variable name year. Then we're going to end it with a semicolon to say that's the end of the structure. We get down to the function here. The type function is a void function. Um, the name for this function is my function. We're using car. Now, previously when we were doing this, we were using integer, standard string, whatever, something else, some sort of type. Well, since we've declared a new type up here with structure, structure being a type, the name of the structure is car, car is now a new type because we've built it up here in our code. So we can use it now down here as a type and give it the variable name C. And then, since void functions do not return anything most of the time, we just output something from them. Output something to the terminal. So we're using standard output, the insertion, insertion, I believe it is, operators throughout this line of code. The first thing we're going to have in here is some content, some text, brand, which is something. We're using C right here, which is going to be our variable name. So we're going to get some data from somewhere that's going to be, it's going to be an argument when we call this function right here. Dot brand, which means that we are using the type, so it's backtracking quite a bit. First, we got to put some sort of value in here for the variable, which will get done in the main. Okay, which then is calling the type, which is up here, and this type brand is going to be some sort of string. So we are forward and backtrack. We were going two different directions with this. First off, when this gets called, we got to have a value for this right here. When the value comes in, it's going to be right here, and it's going to go into brand. So this is going to end up getting a value with all this code right here that we're writing. So this right here is turning into one value using multiple different things, a structure and a function to do that, not to mention when we get the call. Next, we're going to have class year. So we're going to have a car name, and then we're going to have some more content or text right here. It looks like we're going to follow that with a year. So then we also got doing the same thing right here as what we did up here, except for this time we're getting an integer from right here. So we're giving this a value and bringing it into here. So we are, like I said, with the function, the structure, and the main, we are doing a number of different things right here all at one time. And obviously, you know and stuff that this is a new line right here. So it's likely to print off multiple times. It may not. Depends on how many times we call it. And we're finally getting to the main right here. We're going to use the new type from structure, give it a name, and set in the name right here, which is a variable which will be replaced by C right here. So this right here is actually the same as this right here. But we are going to set my car, or C, with Toyota and a integer. So we're going to pass two values into one variable. That variable is going to be set into a call argument. So both of these into the same argument, which is going to then get passed into the variable up here, C, for car. The first one is going to line up with this one. The second one's going to line up with the second one. So even though we have two values right here and only one optional variable, most of the time and stuff when we had two variables, we had to have two parameters set up in the function. In this case, we only have one parameter set up in the function, but two values going into it, in a way. Even though this is the one variable right here. So this right here can be quite complicated if you're looking at it. I mean, just a quick glance at it, yes, it makes sense, but if you try to break it down, it starts getting complicated. Well, you know, that's going there and that's going there and that's doing that and that's I just lost myself sort of thing. So um, if you're new to C++ or writing code and stuff, yes, this can be very confusing. So seeing it over and over, doing it over and over can help to kind of put the puzzle that you're scrambled up in your head into an actual picture over time. It may not happen right away for some people. It may experienced programmers, they see this, yep, yep, I know exactly what's going on, sort of thing. New programmers like myself, it's still kind of a puzzle I'm trying to put together. Yes, it's coming together a lot faster than what it used to, but still. So there's our thing right there. So basically we're going to print off, brand is Toyota, year is 2020. Like I said, when we write the code and stuff, try to decipher the code with what you know, what you understand, and then try to figure out what's going on, basically behind the scenes. And there's another way of doing it, kind of help you to see it and stuff, and instead of just trying to picture it in your head. But yes, when this prints out, it's going to have brand, colon, Toyota, comma, year, colon, 2020, in line. So I've already saved it. Let's go ahead and run it, and that's what should come up in the, yep, brand, colon, Toyota, comma, year, colon, 2020. All right, let's move on. Note, since the structure is passed by value, the function gets a copy of the structure. Yes. The function gets a copy of the structure. So yes, this is the name. So this right here, and it's going to have the same members in it for it. We're using this right here as a value. So then we can put whatever we want to in for these two values right here. Like I said, this is a puzzle piece, and sometimes this puzzle does not go together in your head the first time until you've seen it over and over and over, and then you start to understand how it's coming together in the future later on. Yes, I closed my eyes because I'm trying to picture it. Okay, so this means that the original data is not changed. So this right here data literally is going into here. And if you also remember and stuff, some things I've told you, when the compiler reads this, it reads it from top to bottom. So having this in the right order is key to it working properly. You got the main right here. If you want to call a function better be somewhere where it can be seen first by the compiler. If it's not seen first by the compiler in some way or another, it's not going to work. We've discussed this and stuff in other earlier videos where we take this function right here, move it below it and stuff, and it no longer works. But then if we use a declaration and declare this function up here above the main, then yes, it doesn't matter if it's below it or not. As long as it's the compiler, yes, I know there's a function somewhere and stuff. I just got to wait till I get to it, and then I can kind of put this all together. Um, and since we're using car is not declared anything below here, so it's got to be declared above it. So that way when the compiler sees it, it says, yes, I know what car is. Car is this right here. It has these members right here. This is basically the body of the structure for car. So when you write code like this and stuff, if you put a function, a structure into any, I don't know. I mean, when you get used to it and stuff, you may end up writing it perfectly the first time. I don't know. But it's not going to hurt anything and stuff to start off in the main, start writing something you want done, and and you find out, well, you know what, this would work better if I run it into a function. So then above it and stuff, you start creating a function for it, then you retype the main, then you're like, well, this would work better if I had a structure to go with it. So then you start adding a structure and stuff, you put it above the void sort of thing, and then later on and stuff, and you're like, you know what, this would actually go to better together and stuff if I had a loop for it. So if I had multiple cars, multiple years that I put together a loop and stuff, and it calls up each one in a loop, then you have to put the loop somewhere, figure out where that goes, sort of thing. It can end up being a mess, but to a new person like me, but to an experienced person that's been doing this for a while and has this stuff all stamped into their long-term memory, to where when they see it, it's a first glance. Yes, I know what's going on. I know what I need. I need to do this right here. I need to do this right here to get this to work right. And yeah, it's just instant. So that's why I'm running through all this again to refresh my mind on it, put it back into short-term memory. Hopefully it solidifies a little bit better into long-term memory. And hopefully I can remember it better next time. And yes, I'm likely to go through all this stuff a third time around, maybe even a fourth time around, as practice to try to keep solidifying into my memory more and more. Also, every time I do it, I may understand a little bit more each time. Because if I come back to here and I come to pointers and stuff, and I'm like, what's pointers again? Sort of thing. Well, the next time I go, oh yeah, and it comes faster and faster and faster. Okay. Anyways, so pass by reference. So now we're going to do a pass by reference, a structure. So let's see what we have here. You can also pass a structure by reference using the reference symbol, reference operator. This allows the function to modify the original value. Okay, so we got another example here. We know what's going on right here with this. Now we're going to change our code around and stuff to pass by reference. So looks like our structure is going to stay the same, but our function is going to change a little bit. So we're going to change the name of our function according to this example, update year. And we still have the car as a structure because it hasn't changed, but we are going to add the reference operator in there because we're going to reference the values to change the values. And then in this, we're going to go ahead and change the output of this to c.year and increment it. We've discussed that one before. So now our function is literally doing something else and it's got a different name to it. Now in the main right here, I don't think we're going to keep much of any of this. No, because we are actually, yes, we're going to keep this top line right here. We're going to keep the statement right here of the type car variable, my car, and the values for it right there. We're going to keep that, but the rest of this we're going to change. Specifically this right here, because we updated the function name to update year. So update year right there, and that'll be the end of that. And then we're going to do the output down here, standard output, some content here, the space, Operator my car dot brand. Yep. And then some more content here is now from year space. And I'm going to go to the next line after that because it's already running off the page there. Oops, that was supposed to stay back there. There we go. And then my car again dot year for each declared definition in the structure. And then actually double quotes because we're going to end that with a period after that and then start a new line after that. And we're going to end that statement. Okay, so now it's time to do the exact same thing we did in the last one to try to figure out what this code is doing. So hopefully it gets stronger in our long-term memory over our short-term memory where we're going to end up forgetting it. So we got a structure, the same structure we had before. We updated the function with a new name, new variable. We're referencing the variable of whatever variable we put in here. So instead of the actual values of the variable, we're actually referencing the location of the variable. That is still something we are trying to get solid into our long-term memory, at least I am anyways. So when we reference it, it's the location of the variable, not the variable itself. So in this case, we are going to change the year. Even though we have all this stuff in here, we're going to keep the car name because we're not changing that. It's just the year. This is the only thing sitting in here in the void. And we're just changing the year of it. This still will not return anything or anything like that. When we call this and stuff, the reference location is going to change the year. It's going to increment it by 1. So what we are going to end up getting is the year is going to change from 2020 to 2021 incremented by 1. Toyota will not be changed because it's just the year we're changing. The string, the year. And that's the only thing we're changing is what's currently in that location. Since it's an integer, we can increment it by 1. So whatever's in there. If it's 1999, you can increment it by 1 and make it 2000. If there's two different integers in that location, then both of them are going to be incremented by 1. But in this case, there's only 1. So this should print out the Toyota is now from the year 2021 or 2021. Let's go ahead and save that, run that, and that is what we get. The Toyota is now from the year 2021. Moving on. Tip: use reference if you want the function to change the structure's data or to avoid copying large structures. Don't fully understand what that means, but maybe we will later. Use reference to change if you want the function to change. Use reference if you want the function to change, which is the function. We're making it change the data to avoid copying large structures or avoid copying large structures. Okay, so we're not really doing anything with brand. We're setting it right here. It's still getting printed out right here. Could we take this right here and still use the void function to print it out? Probably. I mean, it's something we can give it a try if you want to. I'm not going to do it in this time around because this video is already getting to be long enough as it is. In fact, I want to move on to the next thing. So feel free to move this around. See if the void function will still call it and still change the year of it to where you can keep remove it from down here and put it up here instead. Try different things with it. I mean, we understand what reference is, we understand what values are, we understand what variables and types are. Use different examples if you want to. If you want to change it to a person instead, well, this person is now this many years old. And it prints out that like that for the entire year. It changes to a new year. You want to increment it. Okay, well, let's increment it now again. So let's go ahead and increment it now again. So if we increment it now again, year plus plus, now it should print out that the car is a 2022. Save, run, yep, 2022. Or you can put a for loop in there. I'm sure you could probably figure out what somebody's age is and stuff off of just the date alone. Subtract the current year, have it go through an incremental stage over and over and over until it gets to whatever the sum of current year minus previous minus birth year sort of thing. And then all you would have to do is change what year it is instead of incrementing it. You just change the year of it. But there's a way to also put in time into your code too. So you wouldn't actually have to change it if you knew how to do the time part. But we don't know how to do the time part yet. So I've seen that in other things. I've discovered it. I know it's possible. I got to keep going through this stuff in order to build it strong into my long-term memory though. Moving on. Okay, so this video ran into a half-hour long right there, just dealing with that and stuff because there's a lot to do for a beginner and stuff. Someone that hasn't done this too long or is just starting out. There's a lot right there to try to understand, and that's a lot to discover. Trying to figure out how this is kind of jumping around and doing what it's doing. So for our next video, we'll get into C++ function examples and start doing some real-life examples. So I think that'll be it for this video right here, and I will catch you in the next video.